Hi everyone, today we're talking about the aircraft design processing system. They sent me the entire thing to test out, and we are gonna send a few stems, stuff from our live set inside the Octatrack, and also just synth to see how it reacts. So the system is comprised of one PureTech style EQ, one G-Bus style compressor, one saturator in mid-side, stereo of course, and then just utilities with power module, input, output, and also test prototype with an headphone amp and a switch where you can select different sources. It's a very, very fun and beautiful system that makes your sound just sounding better. That's the main idea behind it. There's no two-way about it. This is just something that you put at the end of the chain, run your sound, run your live sound before it hits the PA, and you can make it sound better. There's no CV. I'm sure the question will come up in the comments. That's by design, because implementing CV at high audio quality needs a lot more components, and that would raise the cost significantly. And also, I'm not sure that many people would want to CV the ratio of a G-Bus compressor in a live set situation. Most of the use case of that system are in a scenario where you don't need CV over any of the parameters. You just set it, forget it, and the sound comes through better than it was before. That's the whole idea. And compared to what's on the market today, I have to say the Eurorack format is super portable. It's easy to carry around. This fits into a pod. You can choose and pick the modules. You don't have to buy the whole set. You might already have an in and out module. So if you need a compressor, just get the compressor. If you need the Horizon, the PureTech style EQ, or you can get both, but you don't have to get the whole system at once. I could definitely see myself playing out with this. There's not that many solutions, very high quality solutions to this problem of having something that sounds great and that's easy to carry around. 500 series, even with the smallest lunch boxes, is still quite big and heavy. Not something I'd carry around. 19-inch rack, too big. The Cube series from Elysia is definitely doable, but I mean, one or two tops. The fact that this is very thin and can fit into a pod, and it's Eurorack, so it's easy, there's no specific power supply, it's just very convenient. So let's jump right through a few examples and just get a taste for the sound of the thing. So the beautiful aircraft design full system as it stands in 2025. We have the power module here with plus and minus 12, a power button, which is always welcome. The input module with the LEDs that indicate the level, which also is always welcome. The Horizon discrete program equalizer, which is based on a PureTech EQ. As you can see, you can select the frequencies for high and low, and you can attenuate and boost both for high and low. There's a gain module, you can reduce the gain or add plus 10 dB of gain, also very welcome. And you can choose the Q factor, so depending where if you want chirurgical boost or cuts, or if you want something that's more soft and mellow. Then we have the Cascade module, which is a discrete VCA compressor. All these modules are super legible. There's clear indication of volume, gain reduction going on. So you have your threshold to choose whether or not you have a lot of gain reduction. I don't think it activates unless you activate the compressor, of course. You have the attack time, release time. These are detented pots, so you choose between preset attack and release times. It's not fully variable. Same with the ratios. You can choose the ratios from 1.5 to 10, and the threshold is variable. There's no detented pot here. You can balance dry and wet, of course, with the compressor, so you can do parallel compression. We have the Amber module, and this one is an analog stereo saturator with mid-side capabilities. So you have the crossover here, so you choose the point at which the distortion saturation is going to hit, and then you can have the odd harmonics or even harmonics, and you choose between the two. You can blend the twos. There's a dry wet balance mix here, and also input level and output level to compensate, as sometimes heavy distortion just lowers the volume. This is still a prototype at the time I'm making this video, but this is a routing and monitoring tool. So here you have different 1/4 inch jacks, input 3 to be exact, which you can select here and monitor one or the other. You can go out straight from these output to a interface or mixer. Also have, quite importantly, a phone output, which is a headphone output of pretty high quality from what I've tested. And you have level and crossover, which is really welcome for headphones. I have this on my monitor controller, which is SPL Control 1. And basically what crossover does is sending a bit of the left ear information in the right ear and a bit of the right ear information in the left ear, kind of mimicking the response from a pair of speakers. It's not left and right super wide and kind of a natural feeling you get from the headphones. So it brings a whole lot of natural feeling to the headphone listening experience. And from my experience, it's something that once you're used to, it's really hard to live without. So crossfeed is really nice. And also this is super nice to check the mixes you have. There's a filter so you can have full range, so you hear your whole mix, and you can check the 250 Hertz band, the 250 kilohertz, and just the super high frequency. So that's quite welcome, and it's not something you find on a lot of gear. And this is the output module, so pretty basic once again. And here it was completely down, but if we bring the volume, you'll hear a 909 beat. Everything is off, and we'll start with the Horizon EQ. There's a bit of a volume drop because I don't know if my gain matching levels are perfect. Maybe a bit higher. We can start to add a bit of sub frequencies or low frequencies. You can add a lot. We don't need that much. You can choose 20, 30, 60 and 100. I'm forcing it just so you can hear the difference. Not sure you're gonna hear 20 Hertz on your system. I'd say for a 909 beat, 30 or 60 would work best. And then you can attenuate at the same spot. Let's say we remove a bit of 100 Hertz. I'll bring some rides so we can hear the difference. This EQ goes very high, 12K. 18K, I'm not sure my keyring nor my headphones can reproduce those, but it adds air to a mix. And you can attenuate also. The attenuation goes up to 20K. If you have very, very harsh, high frequencies. Very smooth, Very nice EQ. Gives a lot of body to the 909. Then we have the compressor, of course. Quick gain match. I'll put it fully wet for this demonstration. So we're about gain match. So attack goes from very short, and that's gonna eat the attack of the kick. You can of course lower it down. Slow release. That's the lowest ratio. We can go higher for slamming stuff, which is always nice on a 909, to be honest. And you have a sidechain high-pass filter with 60, 120 and 180 Hertz, so depending on the material you're running through. There's no sidechain filter here. You can hear clearly the kick is really coming through a lot more easily with the high pass activated. If we remove both of these, you can instantly hear that the beat has more punch. It's less boxy. You can also add an external sidechain which will disable that one, but you need to plug it in, which I haven't here. Next module in the processing is the Amber, and that's the distortion saturation module. So here it's just on so with no crossover it goes it's quite intense quite quickly because all the frequency will be affected. You can hear the cymbal just starting to collapse in a pleasant way. But if you put the crossover a bit higher to 30, 150, you can go much further. And of course, you have the dry-wet balance. If you remove the kick from the distortion, basically, you have more leeway and how far you can go if you want to distort just the higher parts. To be honest, I quite like to have my compressor fully wet most of the time, but parallel is also nice, but the distortion I find best to just balance depending on the result you want. And that's basically it. We have these three modules. This one is more of a utility tool. It's a bit hard to demonstrate a headphone amp. I can of course showcase the switch, but I'm pretty sure you have a pretty good idea of how that's going to sound. As you can see, the volumes are consistent throughout the system, so I'm not hitting it too hard or not enough, not bringing any noise that shouldn't be there. That's off. And that's completely removed from the chain. A clear difference. So that's on a 909 beat, super dry, but you can already hear the difference it has. Let's run more complex material through it and just play with the module. So I just want to showcase a real case scenario of processing a live set inside an Octatrack through the aircraft design processing system. Part of the team that think the Octatrack doesn't sound incredible, that it lacks a bit of dynamics. If you have a nice, well-recorded sample and put it inside the Octatrack, it's gonna come out a bit worse for it. I'll let the keyboard warrior, our electronauts, smash their keyboards in the comment section. To me, it really benefits from something like this. I've been playing my Octatrack without anything, straight into the zone mixer for years, and I'm not complaining. It's fine. It's fine. I'm okay. But you can clearly tell the difference when you run it through something that's high quality. So with that said, I'll just press play. So everything is off. It's just going through. This is my track Florus from my Tar Aloe release that was released on vinyl earlier this year in April, I think. I've been playing that one since way before it was released, and I'm still playing it. I usually shy away from tracks that have been released in the live set, but I like this one. So let's bring the EQ first. And it's subtle, but you can instantly hear the sound opening up, the pad rising to the surface. It sounds fuller, nicer. And let's go to the discrete compressor. Slow attack to keep the transients. Faster release, not to compress too much. I've engaged the sidechain bypass, which on a mix like this, pretty much have to. It sounds much better with it. No bypass. It's just, again, sounding more powerful, more glued together. And last in a chain, the amber analog stereo saturator. Like any saturation module, it's highly dependent on the volume you put at the input. Very usable saturation and a full mix. So let's do an on-off with everything. I think okay, matching is fairly okay here. So here, let's switch to another pattern. Typically, you're not gonna touch anything here from one track to the other, but just to show that if it works on one pattern and your gain structure is well done inside your Octatrack or sampler or whatever comes into the system, it's gonna sound just the same, or it should be balanced already. This is just the goodizer, the making better. You shouldn't rely on this to make your mix sound good in the first place. That's pretty obvious. Kind of moody ending I've used in the past. So next up in this series of examples, we have a loop. This one is some 909, a small Swayman SM1 stab, a bass line from Atlantis, and the main event, the GRP A2, with the slidey lead with some effects on it. We have a syncussion hi-hat and a V6 pad into a lot of effects. And so all together sounds like this. And it sounds decent. I've already mixed a bit the levels, obviously, so everything fits together. But we'll now run it through the processing system once again. Low frequency boost, always welcome. Especially on a dry 909. I love a bit of high frequency boost. And then we go towards the PCA compressor. The thing I really like about using EQs like this is that despite your loop sounding pretty decent and you're happy with it, once you buy something like this and you run your music through it, it's crazy how little touches like this just brings your loop, your music to a different level. Having something like this, something tangible, makes you take better decisions, I would say. Puts a smile on your face always, because it's just so nice to hear your music sounding better and better. So with that said, let's turn the compressor on. High pass to the max, because again it's a full loop. Obviously if I remove it, it's compressing much harder. But you can hear it's a pretty transparent compressor, because even with minus 12 dBs of compressor on the master, it's not ruining everything. Again, instantly glues everything together. Pretty much makes you sound like a record. And we go towards the saturator. Again, the in matching this time is pretty okay. Here the crossover is at 0, so the whole spectrum gets saturated with a dry wet at 50%. If you go to 100, I would say it's a bit much. I like how the hi-hats are distorting, but not the low end. Either the full spectrum or keep the low end clean and add maybe a bit more on top. And if we do an entire bypass, there's a bit of a drop in volume. To my ears, it sounds much better. remove the low end and you bring it back, there's no drop in volume. That means that your compressor is probably working as it should and not over compressing and not shooting up the volume when you remove the bass and lowering it down when you bring it back. That's also why the side chain really helps here. So instead of a loop this time, and since it's been sitting here the whole time, I thought why not process mainly just a synth to see how it works on individual sound source, because if you have this in the studio you might be tempted to run individual sources through it, and since the GRP A2 can be very powerful and very dynamic, I thought it would be a pretty cool candidate for this. So this is a sequence. Two oscillators, slightly detuned, quite plucky. Can I bring mode to the filter or just ring modulation? And distortion. So let's bring in some EQ. Always nice to open up a synth. At the 3K position you can boost some of the mid sections. Just one oscillator. Should be careful not to turn this into a GRP A2 demo. It's gonna come though. I love that synth. So we have a bit of EQ. Let's bring the compressor. It's the fastest and the highest the ratio will go, the fastest attack, fastest release. Just to see how it reacts. Honestly, I like compressing the synth like this quite aggressively. It can sometimes bring to the surface some elements you haven't considered before or change the groove a little. distortion from the synth. I just bring this one. It's a beautiful distorted veil. Quite different from the onboard distortion, which I really like, contrary to a lot of onboard distortion. If we do both, and if we remove everything, of course the synth now takes a lot more space in the mix. If you were to add other elements, maybe you'd have to revise those settings. Just added a few elements from the 909, of course. Modulating the filter with the LFO running at audio rate. And also the second LFO running at not audio rate. So although the results are not drastic as on a full mix, I hope you'll agree that it still enhances the sound of a synth to run it through a processing system like this. Even just a simple pulse modulated square wave like this. Hope you had fun listening to the few examples and hope it showed the processing power of the processing system. Because I know the question is going to come up in the comments, and some people have already asked me on Instagram the difference between the Overstayer Modular Channel and the aircraft design processing system. I've had this one for a few years. There's no secret that it's my favorite piece of gear ever. And there are a few key differences. The first one being how much more portable this one is. This one is actually not portable. It's not going to ever come out of the rack. I've taken out once in a live stream performance, my very first live show, but that was a very controlled environment with all the time in the world to set up, and it was easy. I mean, and it looks nice on the video, and that was easy to take. These days, I will never ever unscrew those screws to take it out of the rack. No way. Whilst I could definitely see myself bringing this to a live set if I were to keep it, it's easy to carry around, and honestly, I find that having these key modules make a lot of difference on a live sound, and especially on the live big sound system. I'm sure the differences are huge. Another very important difference is that these modules, they are based on classic modules, like the Horizon is based on the Pool Textile EQ, the Cascade is based on a G-Bus style compressor. So these are not the type of EQ and type of compressor that are made to crazily reinvent your dynamics, squash the absolute shit out of your sound. These are made to glue and make your sound better, enhance the sound in relatively subtle ways. The Overstayer, while it can do subtle, can also do the absolute mad stuff. It can wrangle your sound, it can turn it into dust. It can go much, much further than any piece of gears I've heard. You'd be hard pressed to find a compressor that does the same thing as the behavior knob does when it's at 10. I'll link an example below of how it can be completely creative and destructive, but in a beautiful way. Also, the saturation on the Overstayer Modular Channel, there's so many points at which you can saturate and add some gain. It's quite different than just having one saturator at the end of the chain. So they sound completely different. Of course, this one has the mid-side capabilities while this one doesn't, but they are widely different saturation. I have to say, since I'm so used to the Overstayer Modular Channel saturation, and it's by far my favorite saturation ever, this one definitely holds its own as far as saturators go, especially on a full mix. I've rarely encountered saturators that I really like, especially in a rack, so it's worth a mention that Ember definitely holds its own when you run an entire stem, an entire track through it. The question is definitely valid because cost-wise, they're probably in the same ballpark if you buy the entire system, and if you buy this second-hand, I'm not exactly sure how much it costs these days, but it's in the expensive ballpark. So the sure thing is whether you buy this one or that one or anything else, it's gonna bring your sound up a notch in terms of level as well as in quality. You have to identify your needs. If you're a studio nerd that never planned to go out, maybe a 19-inch rack is the solution. And if you plan to use this in your studio, but also outside, live, in a band, whatever situation, then maybe this is the way to go because this is insanely more portable and useful in many scenarios. So hope that answers the question. If you have more, don't hesitate to smash the keyboard in the comments, and I'll see you next time.